Hi there and welcome back to Japan, and it's time for actually quite an interesting one. I'll quickly recount the story because you guys know that I've been doing a lot of baby metal reactions because there's been a lot of response to them, and one of the things that really came up, the reason why I first responded to one of their songs is because, as you guys know, I'll quickly recount the story, I listened to them briefly when they first came out. Well, actually, I was played some of their music at a party by a friend of mine who's a really big metalhead, and was an interesting person anyway, had lots of interesting taste in music. And I remember sort of thinking, this is good, but it didn't hit me hard enough for me to want to keep on listening to more afterwards. So as a result, and I kind of, in my head, just subconsciously, I was thinking of it as a bit of a gimmick. And like I say, I don't mean that as a bad thing. I've got nothing against gimmicks, but I kind of let that steer my opinion. Then I came back and started listening, and through doing this channel, I'm like 10 or 15 songs in now, and it's definite there is obviously nowadays, especially very legitimate artists, seen lots of things like the variation between their old music, which was really, really fun, their new music, which is kind of more technical, but there's been lots to listen to and lots to enjoy. So I wanted to go back to Headbanger. I'll tell you for why. Just from the thumbnail, I can tell this is the song that I think I was played at that party, the one that stuck in my head, but I do not remember the song. So this is this is my first time hearing it. I can be almost certain of that, but it is interesting to go back and listen to it because it's going to test my my memory, and also it's going to be interesting now to hear it from this perspective, because at the time, like I said, I certainly enjoyed it, but I kind of just took it as a bit of a one-off thing, didn't really take it too seriously, and I remember the video was really over the top, which added to the fun, but might have also added to the sense of taking it a little bit too casually. Anyway, enough talk, let's go, and I'm sure you guys all know this song. I mean, I've got a lot of really good baby metal commenters and fans on here, and I'm sure you guys all know this song, but ride with me as we take a trip down memory lane. There's a neck brace involved, that much I remember. Oh jeez. They were really playing for the tacky back then, which was fun. Oh, I didn't even recognise this. It's Sue, the lead singer, isn't it? Move. Again, it's got that sort of growling screamo male vocal in the background, which their early stuff seemed to have, which I don't so much think helps, and I'm glad they've kind of grown out of doing that and relying now just more on using their own vocals. Is this the chorus? It's really hard to tell. We still got 30 seconds to go. What drama ends this? Is it just a fade? Go on, do something surprising at the end. Is that just black? What is that? Oh, okay. Okay, that's pretty much it. That is it. So, 5 minutes is a little bit long, but I can see now why that was such a big hit when it came out and why my friend played that one in particular to me. It is really interesting in that I'm viewing this from many perspectives. Obviously now, thinking of it as a memory, thinking of it in the perspective of what I've heard them doing now, thinking that you guys introduced me to Sakura Gakuen, who are like the idol girl group, who they kind of were a subgroup of and split off of. Looking at all those perspectives, it puts it in an interesting light. So first of all, I'll just sort of cover those points initially before I talk too specifically about the song. I can see how, although some issues are going to obviously mix, I'll try and put all the ideas together in a coherent explanation. Anyway, so yeah, the video really did feel like something that would come from a subgroup of a maybe not ultra famous idol group, in that it started with the sort of schoolgirl thing, sort of showing it from that perspective. It was very fun in a way a lot of their older music was. The structure as well did musically, they had the guitars were not so loud. They were more thinly mixed as well, so it didn't feel as aggressively mixed. The sound was not as overbearing as metal sometimes can be, although obviously it had the shouting, and you had guitar solos and you had double kicks in it. It's from a technical perspective, so some of you might well know this, you can mix those sorts of things to be just a little bit more palatable, and that's certainly the way it was mixed. The video as well, there was lots of smiling, dancing. Everything was presented in a very tongue-in-cheek way. There was a sense that none of this was being taken too seriously, although obviously they were making a genuine musical and video product. They weren't taking themselves too seriously. They were having fun with the concept, which at the time, as you guys have now explained, was still quite a new one for the girls to get used to. As you've explained to me, they were very new to metal when this came out, and I'm pretty sure this was one of their very first singles. It would have been off their first album, I would imagine, at very least. So that came across, and that gave it a certain element of charm. And that's, of course, kind of why the video did look a little bit cheap. It worked. There was enough interesting little bits in there, like the idea of how it started, the neck brace, the holding the microphone up in front of the cross and all that kind of stuff. There was enough little interesting things in there to elevate it above just kind of looking like another cheap video. It had charm. I think that's the big thing to say about this. It has a lot of charm. There's a lot of charm to it in that it does look like something that was not produced on a mega budget, but it was produced with a lot of ideas, a lot of fun, a lot of sense that everyone behind it was really kind of smiling all the way to the finished product, and hopefully all the way to the bank as well. I really hope that this one, everyone involved in this, got something out of it, because this clearly started what is now the juggernaut of their success. Well, I say clearly started, I don't know, it's their first one. It was the first one I believe that I heard, but it's clearly part of that initial push of their career. Now, talking about it strictly on a sort of merit basis of the music and the video just as how enjoyable they were. Well, I've kind of already said about the video. The video was effective enough in that it was interesting, but it wasn't particularly anything to write home about, and it did look a little bit cheap in places. With a bigger budget, they could have done something more interesting, but that's besides the point. In regards to the song, again, very charming. And I love the way they were playing with the idea, but I've got to admit, now listening back to it and hearing it in the context of the other music they've released at the time and since, it's probably one of the most underwhelming. I'll be honest, I don't dislike it. I would be hard pushed to think that I would go specifically back to re-listen to this one, considering some of the other songs that they have. As I was saying in that thing Dave Grohl did, where I reacted to Dave Grohl talking about them, and he said there's no other band like them. That is true, and this song's a good highlighting of that. And so, you know, it's hard to really compare them to any other artists, but even compared to their other songs, they have plenty of other songs that I would probably be much more happy to go back to for, whether it be novelty factor, musically interesting, how insane they are, you know, experimentation, any of these things. It doesn't really stand out as being their best in any of those departments. But it is good. It's competent. There's nothing actually wrong with it, if you know what I'm saying. It's just that now I know that they can do much better. On a novelty factor, I will draw on that, because like I said, this song is very heavily, seems to really be playing with novelty, and that's what makes it so fun, and it is very fun. But if you look at some of the other songs they've had since, and I wish I could name more off the top of my head, but you guys... Well, if you see my reviews, you know. I mean, the one that comes straight to head is like Megitsune, but that's not even the best example I know. But they have had songs around that earlier part of their career which better fused experimentation, had more experimentation in it. I mean, this had the harpsichord thing, which I really liked in it, but beyond that, it just kind of felt like a simple pop metal fusion. And interesting enough, actually, that's maybe a point worth mentioning, is I have said, especially recently, and with more I've heard of this kind of area of the music scene, that there are a lot of groups doing sort of J-pop or girl band pop meets metal. There's a lot of that now, especially since BABYMETAL, probably because of BABYMETAL. But they have set themselves apart. They do have a truly unique sound, even from those who followed them. And so maybe that actually maybe is the point to make here, is that this song perhaps doesn't represent any of the things that make them truly unique. It shows, I think that's the best way of saying it. It shows a lot about, I told you I'd get my thoughts together eventually. It shows a lot of the character behind them. The energy, the fun, the enthusiasm, and the sense of experimentation with which they approach their music. But it's not the quintessential example of the best results that come from that. You can more see, there's more joyous in seeing how it's made, and, you know, the explosion of energy and ideas that have gone into this, than necessarily the result that's come out. So, I would just say this is nice for seeing as maybe like a bit of a bridge between that Sakura Gakuin and, you know, the BABYMETAL sounds that we've heard since. It's nice seeing that as a bridge. I wouldn't say it's one that I'd necessarily go back to, though. But I'm happy I went back to it this time. And I'm happy you guys have sat and watched it with me, all 5 minutes of it. And I'm glad you've sat and listened to me ramble for almost twice as long as that afterwards. Anyway, as usual, I've got loads of videos. And if you're a BABYMETAL fan, if you're new to the channel or not, you know, I've got loads of other videos of theirs to go and look as well. Because I'm trying to build up a little bit of a list to try and decide what my top 5 will be, and then we can have a big discussion about that. As always, get in the comments. Feel free to check out all the other videos, all that YouTube stuff, liking, subscribing. I feel patronising saying it, but, you know, sometimes you have to remind people. Either way, do whatever you want. I don't mind. Just, you know, if you're going to press thumbs down, tell me why. That's all. For now, from Japan. Ciao.